Dieting in 2024 is kind of like trying to drink water from a fire hose. There's so much information coming at you online that it's hard to filter out what is useful from what's misleading. And social media has no barrier to entry, giving unqualified people the opportunity to mislead their followers down a path of yo-yo dieting and exercise confusion. So today, I'm going to break down 13 of the most common fitness myths and not just debunk them, but lead you in the right direction so that you can avoid the shit that stinks. Let's talk about starvation mode. Some people think that if you don't eat enough, your body goes into starvation mode and stops burning fat. And others think that once you actually hit this point, you start gaining fat. In reality, we cannot create fat from air. The body requires excess energy, or calories, in order to create fat. However, eating too little can and will impact fatigue levels and overall energy, making you way less likely to move. If you want to lose fat, you do have to be in a calorie deficit, but being in too much of a calorie deficit has negative consequences. There are long-term consequences to short-term stupidity, which leads us to number 2. Carbs are like the villain in the food world. Am I right? This is entirely wrong. Some believe that eating fewer carbohydrates leads to optimal health outcomes, while others will argue that you should eat a high carbohydrate diet. So what is the truth here? No matter where you fall on this spectrum, it's really hard to deny that carbohydrates aren't essential to your overall optimal function. Carbs provide energy to the brain, which requires about 130 grams on average of glucose per day. And when you consume carbohydrates, they're broken down into glucose, which is then filtered out through the bloodstream and taken in to support metabolic processes. The liver itself contains over 100 grams of glucose to provide energy and regulate blood sugar levels, especially through the night while you sleep. And glycogen is the primary fuel source in strength training to promote fast acting or high energy output performance. So if you're somebody who strength trains, this is going to help you a metric fuck ton. However, when glucose is lacking, protein or muscle fibers can be broken down through gluconeogenesis to provide the body with further glucose sources. This is not an ideal scenario. Now, I want to be clear, eating excessive forms of refined carbohydrates is not ideal for overall health outcomes. But this is why the quality of your diet matters significantly more than you demonizing one fuel source over another. Now let's get into metabolic damage. Some say that dieting can break your metabolism. Throughout my coaching career, I've had many women come in the door saying, "Oh my gosh, I have metabolic damage. I need this to be fixed. What is wrong with me?" First and foremost, there is nothing wrong with you. The truth is, when you undergo weight loss, your metabolism adapts. This is a feature, not a bug. I actually find it kind of funny that people think that this is a problem, because the truth is it's actually the complete opposite. The fact that there are hormonal and metabolic processes taking place to help conserve energy for your survival is a good thing. If that didn't happen, then we would definitely have a problem. Remember that all cells, including fat cells, require energy to survive. So the moment that you lose these fat cells because you've lost body mass, your natural resting metabolic rate will decline as a side effect of that. To the same degree, crash dieting and losing lean body mass will also have those negative consequences, and muscle requires more energy to survive than fat cells do. Next, we have insulin resistance, which I'm sure you've heard is like the devil of your fat loss journey. People believe that the condition of being insulin resistant is the reason why they can't lose weight, but insulin resistance is a side effect, not a cause. Insulin resistance comes as a side effect of excess body fat, lack of physical activity, and consuming highly processed foods chronically over time, meaning that the way to combat insulin resistance is to lose body fat, improve the quality of your diet, and increase the level of physical activity that you actually engage with. Insulin is an anabolic hormone. Human bodies have been bodying since the dawn of human time with insulin and cortisol, which we'll get to in a moment, in order to make these processes function optimally. Your body is created for survival. And leading me right into the next topic, cortisol is the reason that you cannot lose weight or the reason that you're gaining weight. Many women who live high-stress lifestyles believe that the reason that they can't lose weight is because there are people on the internet that will tell them it's cortisol. Every single time that you're stressed, your adrenal glands release adrenaline and cortisol. And as a result, glucose, your primary energy source, is released into the bloodstream. All of this is done to give you energy to escape a fight or flight situation. And this triggers what many people experience, sugar cravings, because sugar supplies your body with fast-acting energy sources that we can use as fuel in order to escape this high-stress situation. And it's also the first thing people tend to reach for when they're highly stressed. The other thing that we do when we're stressed is we reach for really easily accessible food sources, meaning that we're ordering Uber Eats and we don't want to cook, so we're going out to eat, which means the quality of those foods is usually subpar. Another side effect of being highly stressed is that we don't get in much physical activity. If you are driving a commute and also sitting at a desk all day, the odds that you have the energy or motivation to get in exercise in a chronic state of stress is minimal. Last but certainly not least, your sleep quality probably sucks. And when we are sleep deprived, our energy requirements increase, and again, we're going to reach for those high sugar, highly palatable foods in order to give us energy throughout the day. Next, there's no such thing as lifting weights making you bulky. The number of influencers that suggest if you lift weights for 5 minutes, you're going to get big like the fucking Hulk is asinine. Building muscle is not the same as losing fat, but building tissue is an entirely different adaptive response. The truth is, if you're feeling bulky, you probably have more body fat than you would like to have. And if you've built tissue underneath that, you're going to feel bulky. But that doesn't mean that you stop resistance training. What it does mean is you start controlling your calorie intake and looking at your daily movement to get into a deficit to lose body fat without compromising lean body mass. Building muscle is an investment in your health, longevity, and autonomy. And trust me, as somebody who's been lifting weights my entire life and deadlifting over 300 pounds, I am not bulky, though I wish I could be bigger than I am. Calories don't matter. I'm sure you've heard this. Let me explain. The number of humans that actually believe calories don't matter is delusional. Most people who make this argument focus on mechanistic changes that happen acutely in the body and neglect long-term outcomes when we look at human randomized control trials. And I'm going to try to break this down as simply as possible, but if I lose you in this discussion, leave a comment so I can circle back and explain it in a little bit more depth. What people neglect to understand is that calories in and calories out are not independent variables. They impact one another. You have your metabolism or your basal metabolic rate, your NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, thermic effect of food, and also your activity factors. And people think that they can out-exercise a poor diet, but the truth is the amount of calories that you burn from your actual exercise is only about 5% of your total energy expenditure on that side of the coin. So we need to look at the other factors that make up metabolism. First, your basal metabolic rate, which is how many calories you burn literally just existing. Again, this is going to be 70% of your daily calorie needs, and I hope this shifts the paradigm for you that you don't have to earn your food. Your NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis, is how much you fidget or how much you spontaneously move. This is not the same as activity. If you're like me and you talk with your hands, you get up and down, you go to the bathroom multiple times a day, you park at the back of the parking lot, you walk through the grocery store, those are going to be things that impact NEAT. Thermic effect of food is how many calories are required to break down certain food sources that we eat. Protein and carbohydrates have higher thermic effects of food than fat intake actually does. So the quality of your diet, and this is why the quality of your diet, especially in fat loss, really matters. The truth of the matter is, when it comes to the calorie argument, most people underreport the amount of calories that they consume and overestimate the amount of calories that they actually burn from activity. But on to the next one, seed oils are killing you, right? There's a claim that seed oils promote cardiovascular disease and negatively impact your overall metabolic health. So let's dive into why this is just not true. When we look at human studies and we swap saturated fats for polyunsaturated fatty acids or seed oils, when we look at the outcomes of these studies, we actually see more positive correlations to these variables than negative. Now, I'm not saying that this means you should eat a ton of fried or highly processed foods, but when we look at the consequence of doing that, what do you think drives these negative health outcomes for people? Calories. It comes down to fucking calories. Now, if you've ever seen somebody on the internet talk about autophagy and the benefits of autophagy, then you already know where I'm going with this. We're talking about intermittent fasting. The first thing that I need to say is that intermittent fasting is not magic. Even when we're talking about autophagy, you will experience the same levels of autophagy if you just stay in a calorie deficit. But I also want to disclaim that if you're somebody who works a really high stress job, or fasting is just easier for you to be consistent with and it fits within your lifestyle constraints, that's also totally fine. Or if you want to do it for religious reasons, that's also totally fine. However, if you're somebody who struggled with overeating or binge eating, this might be the trigger that gets you back into that vicious cycle, and I would urge you not to go down that path. Now, this one is for all my women who think you have to cycle sync your workouts. Now, here's why I don't think anybody should be painting pictures with a broad brush here, because everybody also feels different at different points in their cycle. I have women that hit PRs during PMS, while others see a huge drop in energy. Because everybody's variance is so different, trying to say you must cycle sync your workouts is asinine. However, if you track your cycle and you notice that there is one point in your period that you are lower energy or you're struggling to be consistent with stuff, Then you could also pull back the volume of your training that week, but that doesn't mean that you skimp out on it. That is an important thing that you can look at personally. But you do not have to do these things, and if you feel good, you're motivated, you're recovered, and you want to go fuck shit up in the gym, go do that. This is for all my women over 45, and I'm saying this because I love you. Going through menopause is not the reason that you're gaining weight, and I want to explain why that is. And now I've talked about hormones before, and yes, they will impact you, and they do make it harder. You are not going to be full of piss and vinegar like you were in your 20s, but that also doesn't mean that fat loss for you is impossible. It just means you're going to have to put in a little bit more effort. Now, when your hormones change, a lot of other things change that trigger your behavior to change. You're just going to feel like poop. Even if your hormones are off or you're going through menopause, you can see fat loss happen if you check the lifestyle boxes. To the other side of the coin, even if you get on HRT and your hormones are optimal, if you don't know how to check the lifestyle boxes and be consistent, you are not going to see fat loss, which perfectly ties into you need to balance your hormones. Do hormones matter? Yes, I want you to feel fucking great. You feel like shit when your hormones are off because you are your hormones. They are not a separate entity of your being. You are a reflection of them. And so if your hormones are off, your energy, your mood, your motivation, your willpower, your discipline, all of those things are going to be off. But again, if you do not have the lifestyle boxes, the behaviors in check, it doesn't matter how great your hormones are, you're still not going to see fat loss happen. Last and not least, coffee makes you fat. Now, this is a myth that goes hand in hand with cortisol. Cortisol is not making you fat. It is a way that your body produces a hormone. It is necessary. It literally spikes every single morning when you wake up. That is why you wake up, right? Cortisol peaks. If the body produces it on purpose, again, tattoo this on the back of your fucking eyelids. Bodies be bodying since the dawn of human time. If your coffee is making you fat, it's because you're getting a mocha frappuccino from Starbucks every day paired with a blueberry donut or muffin. Stop doing that. That's a behavioral problem. That is not a cortisol problem. But it's easier to put all of the responsibility outside of yourself, and there's somebody online who's willing to validate that excuse for you. Whereas for me, I tell my clients, my obligation is to get the greatest version of you out of you because you're meant for more and you know it, and I'm going to hold you to a higher standard because I see that you have greatness in you and I want you to go get that. I don't want you to be stuck in this toxic community of fad diets and restrictive shit and fat burners and detox teas and waist trainers and all this bullshit. Because imagine how much better your life would be, how much more you could focus on other shit if you weren't so focused on your fucking weight because you did it right and you can be done with it. If you want it, you can get it. It's a lateral step and awareness over the fact that the habit that you have to break for many people when it comes to food is the amount of it that you eat and the frequency in which you eat it. That doesn't mean you can never have chocolate again. It doesn't mean you can never have cake again. It doesn't mean you can never have ice cream again. That is unrealistic and unsustainable. Thank you for watching this. Sorry I went on a ramble. Stay tuned for the next one, and if you're interested in getting resources or learning more from me in my community, then I'll leave the Facebook group link below and you can join that for free. I'll talk to you soon.